Have you ever stopped to think about the unexpected signs life presents us? Those moments that seem to come out of nowhere and make us question reality, or rather, make us feel the presence of something much greater. Today, I want to share with you a story that has touched many hearts, a narrative about innocence, faith, and a divine intervention that happened in a way no one expected. Imagine a church, a moment of Mass, the congregation gathered in prayer, and then, the unexpected happens. But before we dive into this exciting journey, I have a very special request for you, who are here with us seeking this spiritual connection. Right now, think of someone you love, a family member, a friend, a neighbor. Anyone who, in your perception, is in need of light, strength, or a sincere prayer. Write that person's name in the comments below now. We will collect all these names and include them in our main prayer, the one prayed with the rosary, committing each of them into the powerful and merciful hands of Our Lady and Jesus. It was a Sunday like any other. The community gathered for Mass, the atmosphere charged with faith and devotion. Everything was proceeding as usual. The readings, the hymns, the preparation for the liturgy of the Word. People were focused, seeking that moment of peace and reflection in the house of God, when suddenly, a completely unusual scene began to unfold. It wasn't loud or disruptive. It was subtle at first, but gradually captured the attention of the faithful. Four small kittens, with the innocence and curiosity typical of their nature, simply entered the church. They didn't seem lost or frightened, but rather purposeful, as if being guided. At first, a few discreet whispers arose, but surprise soon turned to enchantment upon seeing the attitude of these kittens. Instead of running through the aisles or hiding, they seemed to have a very specific destination within that sacred place. And the destiny of these four furry little visitors couldn't be more significant. To everyone's surprise, they walked together, with a calmness that clashed with the hustle and bustle of the world outside, directly toward the altar, more precisely, at the base of the statue of Our Lady. It was as if this were the most natural and safe place in the world for them. Once there, they lay down serenely, nestling close to the image of the Virgin Mary. They showed no intention of leaving. On the contrary, they seemed completely at ease, finding rest and perhaps even protection in that sacred place. The scene was so touching and unexpected that most of the faithful momentarily forgot the course of the Mass to observe those innocent beings finding refuge at the feet of Our Lady. Faced with such a peculiar scene, so full of unexpected sweetness, the congregation's reaction was unanimous. A mixture of surprise, enchantment, and a profound sense that something special was happening. No one was disturbed. No one tried to scare the kittens away. On the contrary, they were greeted with reverent silence and admiration. The priest, with his wisdom and sensitivity, realized that this was not an interruption to be corrected, but perhaps a sign, a divine permission for these innocent beings to share in that moment of faith. He allowed the kittens to remain there, at the base of the statue, for practically the entire Massachusetts. It was as if, in that moment, they too were part of that sacred ritual, resting in a place of honor, blessed by the presence of Our Lady and the faith of those present. The peace emanating from that small feline family in repose seemed to amplify the sense of tranquility and serenity in the room. The Mass continued, reaching its most solemn moment. Communion and the main prayer, moments of profound connection and recollection for the faithful. Silence and reverence hung in the air when, incredibly, one of the kittens lying at the foot of the image of Our Lady moved. It stood up, not to leave or to play, but with a determined movement toward the statue. Slowly, it approached and touched the Virgin Mary's feet with its paw or nose. And it was at that precise moment that something astonishing happened, something that made all eyes turn to it and hold their breath. The little kitten, upon touching the statue, seemed to suddenly lose its strength, as if an invisible energy had touched it. It staggered and, for a brief moment, seemed to faint right there at the foot of the image. It was such an unexpected and intense physical reaction that it left everyone curious and astonished, wondering what could have caused it. Faced with this unusual sight, a small being that seemed to have been touched by a mysterious force upon touching the sacred image, everyone's reaction was one of surprise and apprehension. But the priest, with unwavering faith and an attitude that demonstrated courage and sensitivity in an unexpected moment, took a truly incredible step. Instead of turning away or worrying about mass protocol, he approached the altar, went to where the kitten lay, and with care and tenderness, picked the little animal up in his arms. Feeling the kitten go limp, as if it were truly unconscious, he didn't stop. The most surprising thing was that, with the kitten inert in his arms, the priest continued to preside over the Mass and the prayers, incorporating that unexpected moment into the sacred ritual. It was a gesture of profound compassion and faith, as if to say that nothing, not even something so unusual, could interrupt the connection with the divine that was being celebrated. And as the priest, with the kitten in his arms, continued with the prayers, something wonderful began to happen. Slowly, to everyone's relief and amazement, the little animal began to show signs of recovery. He slowly came around, regaining consciousness and strength, right there in the priest's arms, amid the congregation's prayers. It was a spectacle of delicacy and mystery, a seemingly fragile being revived by the power of that moment of faith and the tenderness of those who held him. Meanwhile, the other 3 kittens, who had remained quiet throughout the event, remained there at the base of the statue, as if they were guardians or silent witnesses. They didn't run away, they weren't frightened, they simply remained, seeming to absorb the atmosphere of prayer and the grace emanating from that place and that unusual situation. Everything seemed synchronized, a silent dance between the unexpected, faith, and the divine presence. What happened at that Mass left an indelible mark on the memories of all present. The kitten's recovery in the priest's arms, while the prayers continued, amplified the feeling that something truly special and blessed had occurred there. Everyone was deeply touched and amazed by the sequence of events. The peaceful arrival of the kittens, their refuge at Our Lady's feet, the intense reaction of one of them to her touch, and finally, their recovery amidst prayer. It seemed as if Our Lady's very presence had manifested itself in a palpable and unexpected way, using those innocent beings to touch hearts and strengthen everyone's faith. The feeling that the Virgin Mary was there, blessing each one and welcoming even the simplest creatures, lingered in the air long after the Mass ended. This story, with all its uniqueness, invites us to reflect on the presence of the divine in our lives, often manifested in ways that escape our logical understanding. She reminds us that faith is not limited to church rituals, but manifests itself in gestures of compassion, in accepting the unexpected, and in trusting in the power of prayer, as the priest did when he continued praying with the kitten in his arms. Just as grace seemed to touch those animals in the congregation that day, daily prayer has the power to touch our lives, to bring peace to our hearts amidst turmoil, to strengthen us to forgive those who offend us, to open paths to further conversions, and to increase our own faith. It is this faith that moves us, that allows us to see God's hand even in the simplest or most challenging circumstances of our daily lives. Therefore, I reiterate that important request from the beginning. If you haven't already, or if you've thought of someone else, take this moment to write in the comments the names of the loved ones you wish to entrust to us in prayer. Let us unite our voices and intentions in the Rosary, asking for Our Lady's intercession so that light, healing, peace, and conversion may reach the lives of each of them. What does this unusual story reveal to us about the connection between the sacred and our world? Were those kittens simply animals seeking refuge, or was there something more? Something that touched the hearts of the faithful and made many wonder if they weren't angels sent to witness or bless that moment. Leave your opinion and thoughts on this story in the comments below. Your participation greatly enriches our community and helps us understand different perspectives on faith and mystery. If this narrative touched you in any way, if it made you reflect or feel something special, please show your support by liking this video. This is very important to us. And if you enjoy our content and want to receive more stories, reflections, and messages of faith and hope, subscribe to the channel now and activate the bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Also, share with those you think need to hear this message. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch and for being part of this community of faith. May God and Our Lady greatly bless you and all your loved ones.